Before we get started too, I mean, I don't know how many people have been to the Walden Spa, but this place is great. It was just ranked 18th out of the top 100 spas in America. I mean, that's phenomenal because there are some incredible spas around the world. And they also, they're the only, four diamond, honey?
AAA, 5-diamond, four-star?
Yeah.
Well, AAA, 5-diamond
in Ohio.
Yeah.
It's the only one in Ohio, which is pretty wild. So it's pretty phenomenal. So anyway, we'll get started. We'll have question and answer at the end. I'm Dr. Paul Bizjak. I think most of you probably know that. I always think, you know, a lot of speakers tend to start with why you should listen to them, and they talk about all their accolades and where they've been and what they've done. But for me, there's so many so-called experts out there that you have to wonder who to listen to because you hear such conflicting information, and there's so much information bombarding us so fast right now. So for me, I've been in practice over 20 years, private practice. I think we're approaching almost 500,000 patient visits in our office, and I'm in active practice now. So what that means is I see what's going on right now, because some people go off and they write or they lecture, but I see patients every day, so I know what they're doing. I know what the doctors are telling them. I know what treatments are being recommended. I know where the ups and downs are, and I'm making an effort to be super well also, and I have been for a long time. So I'm kind of in it with you guys. So I try to do the legwork and figure some stuff out, and then I get the information to you guys. So, but the reason we're doing a series, and I don't even have the next one I'm going to do is biohacks, shortcuts to optimal wellness or optimal health. So this is kind of the opposite. This is kind of going back to basics, because the biohacks one is kind of the latest and greatest technologies to really shortcut getting well. But that's what everyone's trying to do right now, and they're forgetting about the basics. So we wanted to start with the basics because it just seems like we're spending so much money and we've got so much technology, and we're advancing so fast and so much, and we've got the biggest and the best hospitals and the most doctors and the smartest people and the research, and yet we're sicker now than we have ever been. So it's this weird thing that's happening that somehow no one's really going, what is wrong with this picture? I mean, as far as in January, the new autism numbers came out, and it was 1 in, I think, 36 kids have autism around the spectrum. No one even talked about it. It didn't come up on the news. It wasn't on websites. I mean, that is a major, major, major issue. So at some point, we got to step back and go, what are we doing? So I've always studied, and I talk about this all the time, hunter-gatherer tribes, because these tribes, and they're still in existence today, don't have the illnesses that we have today. Back, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they didn't have the cancers and the diabetes and the obesity and the depression. They didn't have the stuff we had. You know, when they died of infection, starvation, and trauma. They didn't die of the chronic illnesses. So that is who I have kind of been modeling or really studying over the past 15 to 20 years, because they kind of hold the secret to success, because they have the same genes as us. Because all you hear about is genes. Well, our genes haven't changed in thousands of years. So we can't blame genes for the crazy boom in chronic illness that's plaguing everybody. I mean, I remember doing a talk probably 20 years ago, and I remember asking a crowd, I said, who here has been touched by cancer? One person raised their hand. Now, if I said that today, everybody in any crowd I give will have to raise their hand, because the numbers are so, they're going crazy. So is Alzheimer's and the autoimmune stuff. Right now, there's over 160 autoimmune conditions that they've now classified. I mean, that's crazy. Kids are getting these illnesses. They always talk about we're living longer, so that's why we're getting sicker. Well, the fastest rate of chronic illness increase is in kids right now, and young people. And this is the first generation that is not going to live longer than their parents. This is the first time in history. Brain size, for the first time in history, is now starting to decline. So, and it doesn't have to be that way. So, but as far as basics go, we have to ask the question, why are we so sick? And my little remote thing isn't working, so I've got to use my hands here. And I'm not going to do a bunch of slides, and I'm not going to lay this out like a lecture. I'll bounce around a little bit. Like I said, I pulled this together this morning because I just wanted to have something instead of just talking to you, so you'd have something to look at. But if anybody's ever had a plant or taken care of a plant, this probably isn't the best example because we all aren't too good with plants. But if I ask you about a plant and I say, how do you take care of a plant? What does a plant need? What are you going to say? Water, sunlight,
good soil.
good soil. Those three things. So if you see a plant and it's wilting, you know it's deficient in one of those three things. Or it's toxic. You know, say somebody's dumping gasoline in the soil. So we understand it's so basic and simple. And we know that a plant is supposed to flourish and thrive. And if it's not, something's wrong. We don't blame the genes. We don't blame, we blame the environment, or we blame those things. The wild thing is, if I ask anybody what this is a complex chemical breakdown of photosynthesis and how a plant takes sunlight, adds carbon dioxide and water, and makes food. Here's the cool part. We don't have to understand any of that to take care of a plant. All we have to do is give it water, give it food, and give it sunlight. Or, you know, and it'll do the rest. So we don't have to understand all the complexities. And that's the way it is with the human body. If we look at this is called the Krebs cycle. And this is where we're going to stop with these kind of slides, I promise. You know, this is like chemistry class. But this is the Krebs cycle, how we take glucose and we make energy. And this is a complex situation. Look at these words. Isocitrate dehydrogenase, malate dehydrogenase, fumarase, all this stuff. And this is how we take glucose and turn it into energy. And it's pretty complex. But again, we don't need to know how that works. We just have to put the stuff in our body, and the body does it for us. I'm going to actually jump out of here because this chart, this chart here, this is that cycle I just showed you in a more complex form. I'll zoom in on that real quick so you can see it, because it's crazy what goes on in our body. Now that's how we take glucose and turn it into energy, but that's just one single thing in our body that's happening, because this chart shows if we back out, these are as many metabolic pathways as they know about. And this is going on in our bodies, right? So there's over 1,000 chemical reactions happening in every cell, every second, and we have 100 trillion cells in our body. So where we've gone wrong, really, is we've kind of taken on a mechanistic view instead of a vitalistic view. And in medicine, what's happened is we've broken the body into pieces. And so we study the heart as the heart, and then we study the kidneys, and we study the immune system. The problem is when you break apart the whole into pieces, you lose the whole. And that's what happens with even foods. You know, we've done that with vitamins and minerals, haven't we? Kind of, you look at it's broken down, like how much vitamin C, vitamin A, all these things are broken down. But the problem is that's if you take the apple is an apple, and in that apple are things that we haven't discovered yet. Probably there's cofactors, enzymes, all these things that work together because it's real, it's whole foods. So we've made it so complex, which is okay if we were the healthiest country in the world, but we're not. We're the sickest. And so it's time to simplify things and get back to some basics. Let's see if I can get this back up. And what we'll see is an improvement in health. The problem is it's almost too simple, and I hear this all the time in my practice where doctors say they'll, like ice, if they've got swelling in an ankle or their back or their neck, ice. Their doctor won't even tell them about ice because it's too simple. If it's too simple, they just blow right past it. They don't want to it has to be so complicated. That's why you're not hearing about simple things like diet and exercise. It's almost too simple, and it's not patentable, so there's no money to be made. But it's not as complex as we're making it. So our heart disease is our #1 killer in this country. Actually, cancer is now, but that'll probably come out next year. But heart disease is up there. You can imagine how much we spend a year on heart disease. And we have the Cleveland Clinic, the heart hospital of the world, right here. Heart disease. We're trying to figure this out and spending billions of dollars and so much time and effort. Well, here's a South American tribe. Samani, I don't know, it's a Spanish name. I almost asked my daughter how to pronounce this, and she's in Spanish 3. But bottom line, they have the healthiest hearts, this showed up last year, of any human they've ever studied. So now they've got the healthiest hearts of any humans. We have the same genes as them. So the question is, what are they doing different? Do they have the best hospitals? They have the best doctors? They have the best drugs? They don't even know what a carbohydrate is. They don't know what a lipid is. They don't know how their heart pumps. They know nothing. But what they basically are wild humans living in the wild, living the way we are actually genetically designed to live. And that's where we've gone wrong, is we've gotten so far away from our natural way of living, and the net result has been downhill as far as health goes. So if you take a chart and you look at, green, on the green end it's perfect health, and on the black end it's death, we're somewhere in between there. But the further we get away from our natural environment, the further away we get from natural health, and we decline. The problem is, too, is that symptoms don't usually show up until later on in the disease process. So you don't even know you're sick a lot of times until late in the game. Our current healthcare system revolves heavily around symptoms. Because when do you go to the doctor? When you're sick. How do you know you're sick? You have a symptom. Well, that's a problem, because if symptoms are the last thing that come on in any disease process, it's usually pretty late. And so the first major symptom of heart disease is death due to a heart attack. So you can't wait on those symptoms because it may be too late. So these are the healthiest people in the world that they've ever studied. And if you look, they spend most of their day hunting, fishing, farming, gathering wild fruits, nuts. And there's actually a lot more to it, because when you talk about wellness and health, you got to go beyond just what we eat and how we move. It's about how we think and our stress levels and our sense of community and our connection. I mean, these tribes, their elderly are healthy. They actually contribute to the tribe. They're an asset to the tribe. They also don't have Google or encyclopedia, so they contain all the wealth and all the knowledge. I mean, because they've been through things before, so they're revered in their tribe. They're not a burden on society, but they maintain their health, so they're healthy, so they can contribute to society. This is the Pitaha. They were listed as the happiest people they've studied, and that's kind of what we're all after, right? Is kind of happiness, right, with wellness. So when it comes to these Pitaha people, they live the simplest life ever, but they live the life that we're genetically designed to live. Ironically, and this just happened to be in the title, but they don't have a word for past or future. They just kind of live in the present. So it's pretty interesting. Now, actually, what I'm working on when it comes to wellness is taking what we know about these tribes and kind of merging it with today's technologies, because I don't want to have to go hunt for my rabbit every day. I don't want to have to grow my own food, all of it, and pick it. I've been told I'm not allowed to wear a loincloth around my house, I guess. So, but we can merge those two. And actually, when I get into the biohack stuff next talk in April, I'll talk about some of those technologies, because there's some really neat stuff that we can use to kind of boost our health. And unfortunately, nowadays, we need help because we've got so much working against us. That's a little bit more of the bad news, is that everything they eat is organic, because they don't use pesticides. They don't have, they live as clean a life as they can live. So they don't have synthetic cleaners. They don't have fire retardants in their clothes. They don't. In fact, I just heard this weekend, I was at a seminar, if you check anybody's blood now, it has fire retardant in it. If you check any mother's milk, it's got fire retardant in it. And some of these chemicals actually have been banned before the mother was ever born, which means it was passed down from the grandmother. So what's happened is we got this cumulative bioaccumulation of toxins that are building up our systems. the guy talking about it said the good news is we won't catch on fire very easy because we're loaded up with fire retardant. But, you know, we're so smart, right? We're smarter than these tribes. Isn't it funny we talk about them like they're savages because they eat the bone marrow out of the bone, or they're savages because they eat the organ meats, and they don't wear clothes or shoes in the wild. There was a blogger that had a, it was on TED Talk blog, something, and he said, we have an obligation to find these people in these remote villages and teach them what we know. Show them our ways. And I thought, that's great. I could see like 6 overweight, depressed scientists getting off the, you know what I mean? And they'll run. So, in fact, this is what the plane will look like when they're coming in for landing. We don't want you here. Isn't it funny though? We think they would want to be like, come be like us. No, they're the happiest people in the world. They have the best hearts in the world. So, this is kind of random, but back to that complexity of the chart. You know, people are talking about things like curcumin and turmeric, things like that. Any kind of supplement. Now, this is a breakdown of curcumin and some of the pathways it will have an effect on, proteins and enzymes, and the benefits of it. And if we break it out into this chart here, it'll show some other things that's been shown to be helpful for. Inflammatory disease, cancer, lung disease, neurological disease. So what happens is we step back and we say, hey, you know what, you've had a stroke, you should take curcumin, or you know, you've got diabetes, you should take curcumin, epilepsy. The reality is they've been using turmeric, which has curcumin in it, for thousands of years. So when we talk about simplifying wellness, what I'm talking about is backing up and forget about symptoms and conditions and diseases, and let's just live congruently with our genetic needs. And that other stuff tends to kind of go by the wayside. That doesn't mean there's not necessarily a need for specialization. Of course there is. But if the average person backed up and lived the healthy lifestyle, eating the way a wild human's supposed to live, move the way they're supposed to move, and think the way we're supposed to think, probably 80 to 90% of all chronic illness will go away. I mean, that's phenomenal. So why do we simplify? Well, we mainly simplify because what we're doing and what we've been doing isn't working. It's unbelievable how sick we are with how much money and time and energy we've put into it, and we keep heading down the same path. And I don't know at what point do they say, and I know doctors that have said we're going down the wrong path, and they've turned around and they've changed their ways and gone into things like functional medicine and nutrition and more lifestyle-related treatments. So I'm just going to go through 8 ways to simplify, and this is what happened. I just started to list some things, and I thought I probably should put them up here just so you can at least see them. I probably could have listed 20. I could have listed 4. I picked 8. The first thing is doing things that are always good. And I tell patients this a lot because people are so confused on what to do or what not to do. I would stick with the things that we know are always good, right? And we kind of know what's good. Like, we know broccoli's better than French fries, right? So choose the broccoli when you can. We know that complimenting your spouse on the great meal they just made improves your relationship. Anthony, what are you looking at? Guilty? Oh, you made dinner. All right. Yeah, I like it. Hallie, don't forget to thank him. But you know, we know that helps. So we can do the things. We know that taking the stairs is better than the escalator. We know that not staying up for the 3rd episode of Game of Thrones on a work night at 2 in the morning is probably not best. So we know. So I say do things that you know are good. And we have a good idea of what's good and what's not. And so do the things that you know are always good. If you think you need to apologize to somebody, apologize. That's good. You know, you're not going to go wrong. So stick with things that are always good. How about doing a lot of small things? We always shoot for the big things, don't we? I know what happens in investing, where people always want that home run, that big payoff. And it also comes with the risk of a big loss. But the little things. I mean, if you put X amount of money away over a period of time and do the math, you will be wealthy at some point. It's the same with health. The little things do matter, whether it's your health or your finances or your relationships or your job. I mean, if you get there a little early and you stay a little late at work, or you learn a position that's not necessarily yours so you can help out if you need to. Those are little things, but guess what? They all add up. And then what happens in the job, if all of a sudden they're going to make cuts, well, now you've created so much value for yourself, it pays off. And what I say is measurable or not, because we don't always measure. Like when people take things like fish oil or curcumin, you may not feel a difference, but there is a positive effect. Because I have people that say that all the time. I had a woman come in, she said, I quit smoking and I feel terrible. I feel the worst I've ever felt. I said, what do you want me to tell you? Smoke? I said, your body's detoxing. We know that not smoking is better than smoking. Hang in there. So sometimes it may even feel worse. But the little things are what matter. They talk about base hits, not home runs. If I throw, and that's true in principle, because if I throw, if I put a big rock in a sink full of water, the water raises relative to the size of the rock. And that's how we can measure the volume of the rock. And you can see the water rise, and it'll rise so much. And we've probably seen that when you were little, you dropped the soap in the tub or whatever. So that's true. That's true in principle. So if I go to Lake Erie and I throw a rock in Lake Erie rises. It has to, right? Because I've displaced the water. You can't measure it. And that's the way it happens in wellness a lot. You can't always measure the outcome. And usually people come in and you've gotten so far away from, talk about health, that you're not going to see a change right away. I mean, it may be time, but it's that cumulative effect, and then all of a sudden there'll be jumps. It doesn't usually go at the same rate, because I've had people say that, they'll do stuff for their spouses, and it doesn't matter. It matters. Everything matters. So the small stuff matters. They matter. How about ease into change? What happens on January 2nd in the United States? Gym memberships fill up, right, and everybody goes, and I got people that come in, they never worked out, and they're going to these boot camps. And they're ripping their Achilles tendon, and they're pulling their hamstring, and they're hurting their necks and their backs. And that's a stressor on the body. The body actually will resist change when that happens. So we don't want to, you got to start easy. And back to the small changes, every change matters, but you got to start easy. I've said that. I saw a bunch of patients this morning. I bet I said that 3 or 4 times. Just someone was going, I said, no, don't go crazy. They're going swimming. Don't swim 50 laps, swim like 2. You've never swam before. So easing into change makes sense. And I always say cut down, don't cut out initially, right? Because what do? Gotta give up chocolate. Well, if you love chocolate, how long is that going to last? But if you cut your chocolate intake in half, that's going to be significant. And over time, it's going to be very significant. So when people cut out coffee, maybe they go from 6 cups a day down to 3. That's a good start. And as we move toward healthier lifestyles and the body gets healthier, it craves that stuff less anyway. I've had spouses tell me, you didn't talk to him about smoking? I said, no. First of all, I want him to come back. And if I talk about smoking, he's not coming back. 2, that's not the first thing I want to work on, because it's such a major stressor if they quit smoking. Plus, he already knows it's bad, and everybody tells him it's bad. So I'd rather work with him to get him healthier and healthier, because the healthier you get, the less your body's going to crave these things. It's progress, not perfection. I like teaching stuff that I like teaching myself at the same time. I don't want to be hypocritical, but I'm all in usually when I do something. So how about this? Trust the body's vitalistic or innate abilities. I just showed you that pathway, that chart of pathways. I'm not a big fan of the flu shot, and that comes up all the time. But what you'll hear on the news every time is they'll say the best thing you can do to prevent the flu is to get the flu shot. Now, I could talk all day long about what's wrong with that, with the flu shot and all that. But even if you think it's the greatest thing, and even if you think it's a really good thing, how can it be the best thing? I mean, that means it's better than me taking care of my body and building up my own immune response and taking action by eating well, getting enough rest, and building up resistance. Because we're fighting off the flu every day. We're exposed to the flu every day. I'm around patients. I'm probably exposed to every germ there is. So you got to trust the body's abilities. I mean, that chart, it takes food and turns it into muscle and blood. The body is so intelligent that if and what happens a lot of times in medicine is we're trying to override these things or trick it. And what we'll do is we'll bypass one of those pathways at the expense of another. So that's where you hear the drug ads, right? It says side effects may include. Well, why do we have to have side effects? I mean, when you eat a healthy life or live a healthy lifestyle, you know what the side effect is? It's not rashes and asthma and cancer and death. It's better sleep, more energy, better relationships, and that's the benefit of the healthy lifestyle. But the body has this amazing ability. So your kidney has sensors in it, so it knows when the fluid reaches a certain level that you need fluid. It will send a hormone to your brain and trigger the thirst. The problem is if you drank water long enough till it got into your system and worked its way through the kidney so the kidney can now sense it and turn off that sensor, it would be late. You'd have so much water in your. There are sensors along your esophagus that sense the fluid going in to trigger the brain to turn off the thirst. I mean, this is the stuff that I think, and you're probably all like, yeah, that's great. This stuff gets me fired up because I think if it can do that, or if it can bring a sperm and an egg together and make a baby, it should be able to fix a backache, a headache, or do the things that we're trying to do with these drugs. We have give the body no credit. And the only thing that really heals is the body. I'm very clear on that with my patients. When someone comes in and says, hey, you healed my migraines, we sit down and say, you got to understand what heals. It's not a doctor, it's not a pill. It's the body. It heals from the inside out. So there's, like I said, there's 1,000 chemical reactions, 100 trillion cells in our body, 1,000 chemical reactions every second in those cells. We don't know. We don't even know everything we need to know yet, or everything we're going to know. They're going to find a new protein. They're going to find something else, but we know enough. There's no big break. Well, that leads into this. There's no big breakthrough coming. Everybody thinks there's this new big breakthrough, and the headlines come out. Oh, this new nutrient, or hey, even natural stuff. There's no single thing that's going to be the answer. Everybody's wanting, and everyone asks me about it because they come to me and say, oh, I saw this on TV, or I read about this, or my friend said they're selling this, and it's some kind of Himalayan monkey urine or something, and it's some we're looking for this magic thing, and it's just it's not going to happen. In fact, these breakthroughs, like here, like about bone broth, that's like the rage right now, and people are making it, and you can buy it. It's awesome, phenomenal. Essential oils. They're phenomenal. Well, guess what? Those aren't breakthroughs. We've been using this stuff forever. In fact, we probably 10 years ago would have criticized a tribe for boiling bones and drinking the thing. We would have said that's disgusting. So now we're doing that. But we've been doing that stuff for thousands. We're starting to come back because this is the stuff that actually works. So there's no big breakthrough coming through. It's just not going to happen. And a lot of people are waiting for that. So they're doing nothing until this happens. I mean, I'm always looking for advances in some technology, and I try everything. I'm a chronic self-experimenter. So when I talk next month about those products, I've tried everything. So I'll actually pull some of the best thing out. My basement looks like a lab. I've got infrared sauna, I've got hyperbaric oxygen, I've got ozone therapy, and so but there are things that we can do. So there are things that will help, but there's no big one single breakthrough. I'd also say you don't wait for your doctor's approval. And this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, but the reality is we don't we don't call our plumbers for electrical questions. We call the electrician. Doctors are traditionally, they're trained in crisis. They're in sick care. And the best doctors I know will know that. They say that. I had a patient, she kept nagging her boyfriend at the time. He was an internist. You need to do this, and you need to do that, and it was all natural. You need to do this. And he finally said, listen, I am not a wellness doctor. I'm a crisis care doctor. People come to me when they can't function, and I put out the fire. And he said, so that's what I do. And that's okay. But what happens is a lot of people are under the impression that their doctors are going to lead them down this path of healthy living, especially when it comes to kids, and it's just not going to happen. Mainly, they're not trained in it, unless they've taken some advanced training, but they're not trained in healthy living. They're not trained in lifestyle management. So they don't know that stuff. Just like I don't know about injections. People ask me, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to inject. Ask the doctor. We don't do that here. So, and you'll hear stuff a lot, you know, in medicine, it's very, they have to stay within their kind of scope of practice, but also standards of care. And I've learned this over the last couple of years, really, where, you know, it's risky for a doctor to go outside of the standard of care because they open themselves up to some risk. Plus, it's frowned upon. There is a way of doing things. If you know, you're diagnosed with this, this is what it says we should do. And I know doctors that have gotten bored with that enough that they've broken out and they're doing different things. Because they're just not wellness experts. That's not a criticism. It's just that's not what they're there for. Now, they're there for other things. I mean, if you bust open your head and you need stitches, don't come to my office. I won't help you. I had a friend in Virginia, and he was a small town, and everyone came to him. He was just the man. He was the doctor. And they'd come to him. He opens the door one day to the patient standing there, shards of glass sticking everywhere, blood coming down. He's like, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I need to know what to do." He goes, "You go to the emergency room." He goes, "Okay, I just wanted to check with you first." So, but, you know, it's not what they do. Even for me, I don't want to dabble in everything. You know, if you need acupuncture, I'm going to send you to the best acupuncturist. If you need massage, we're going to send you to the best massage therapist. So, you can't wait for your doctor's approval, because there's something that tends to happen too. There's this almost reflex that says, that's not good for you. The reality is, they should say, I don't know about that. But there's this kind of reflex that says, that's not good for you, or don't do that. Because I've had people say, ask them, you know, don't get your neck adjusted. Ask them, what is an adjustment? And a lot of times, they don't know. So why are they saying, don't do it? Do you see? So, you know, that's like me saying, don't get that steroid, get this steroid. I don't know about that stuff. That's not my deal. So be careful about that. And the doctors that are most open are the best. I mean, I had a lady the other day, she was criticized. I mean, they get scolded sometimes. Like, if you want to waste your money on that, you go ahead. Or, why would you go there? What they need to say is, I went there because you couldn't help me. Because they usually go there first, right? So I wouldn't wait for a doctor's approval on some of the stuff. Become your own wellness expert. And that kind of flows right into that. Become your own wellness expert. There's enough information out there. I mean, who's going to care more about your health or your kids' health than you? Nobody. And there's enough information out there, and there's some misinformation, there's no question, but that's why you got to read a lot. Because then you can take all the information, cross-reference it a little bit, and see what adds up. And use our gut. We're the only animal species that doesn't use our gut anymore, right? I watched a bird the last few years that makes a nest, and I watch out my window. And I always think about this bird because no one tells it what to do. It just follows its gut. It knows how to make a nest. It's not complaining about making a nest. It's not trying to build a bigger nest than its neighbor. You know, it's just it's functioning within a certain window within its, and we don't even do that anymore. They just said, I don't think this is new, they found that hormone, when women that take birth control, the divorce rate is so much higher, and they're saying that it interferes with their hormones and pheromones, and they're choosing the wrong person. I don't know the details, but it makes sense. I mean, we're so not on track with what we're genetically supposed to be. So, but you can become the web. I've watched doctors in the room. I ask a question, they pull it up on Google. So they're using Google too. So you can use Google. You don't want to run out. And who to listen to? I did an article actually on the flu shot, and I had somebody write into the paper saying that I shouldn't be the one writing about that. You shouldn't listen to me about things like that. And I wrote another article saying you need to listen to whoever knows what they're talking about. If your neighbor's son has autism, and he picks up trash for a living, but he has studied it and he's traveled, he could be an autism expert. I would listen to a person like that. Now, I wouldn't listen to one of my crazy neighbors who throws out a different thing every time, but you see what I'm saying? And but you can become your own expert. Read everything, audiobooks. I work out to audiobooks. I listen to my car. I would definitely not listen to the news. So I would listen to things like that. You can become your own expert. If you listen to or read, I say listen to, I listen to more than I read now. I listen to or read, if you read, say, 4 books on gluten intolerance, you know more about gluten intolerance than probably 99.9% of the population. So you essentially can become an expert on those things. So become your own expert. And then keep it real. Real. I mean, how hard is it? That's a good default, right? Food, apple, it's real. Ingredients, apple, it's just an apple. I actually was looking through my cabinet to look for something. I was going to read some ingredients, and I couldn't really find anything that was crazy bad, because it was funny. I'd pick up something and I'd see it was organic, whatever. So, but I found graham crackers, and it wasn't crazy bad, but it's still like artificial sweeteners, all these words. If you think of how we make bread today compared to how our grandparents made bread, the ingredient difference, it's crazy. So keep it real. Real food, real movements. CrossFit, a lot of these things are actually pretty good if you start easy, because they're real movements. I mean, is climbing a tree, that's got to be better than just doing curls and tricep push-downs, because you're using the body the way it's meant to be. Sled pulls, yoga, Pilates, these things that actually move the body. Or just go out and do work, because we've made it a habit to, our whole goal as humans is to make life as easy as possible, isn't it? Like, that's our whole goal, and that's a downfall. I mean, remote control is probably one of the worst things. We don't even get up to change the channel anymore. I saw my neighbor, they bungee cord their garbage can to the back of their car to pull it to the end of the driveway. Now, our driveways aren't even that long. I mean, it's insane. I was taking my dog for a walk, and I was walking back, and I have older neighbors next to me. I was going to grab their trash can and bring it in for them, and I halfway up the driveway, I stopped, I went back, and I left it there because I thought I wasn't doing them service by bringing it in, because that might be the only exercise they get all day. So real relationships. I mean, you know, not that there's anything wrong with this Facebook and all that stuff, but real relationships. Keeping things real. Real is good. We've got, you know, I've got this new, you know, we try to multitask, and it's a problem. I remember listening, I'm talking to my buddy on the phone, and I can hear him typing in the background, and I'm like, dude, will you stop typing for 2 seconds, or call me later, you know? Sound like his girlfriend or something. But you know, when you're there, be there kind of thing. Keep things real. Real food, real movements, and real relationships. So here's some quick to-do lists. Where are we at on time? Done? All right, I'm going to whip through this real quick then. And I will email this to you. And these are kind of my staple things that I give at most talks, because guess what? You can only fancy this stuff up so much. These are the basics. Add supplements. No one likes to take things away. You know, you don't want to get rid of donuts, so keep eating your donut, but add fish oil, probiotics, a whole food multivitamin, and vitamin D. Those are the 4 that we talk about, and I'll email that to you. But nowadays we kind of need to add some supplements because we're just deficient. And I don't take these supplements for conditions. I take them because as a human we need certain things, and we're not getting them. We're not getting enough omega-3 fats. Our brain is half fat, and I think 1/3 of that is DHA fats, and we're not getting enough of that. So Dr. Perlmutter, a neurologist, he said that the things that he does right away is fish oil, for sure. And that helps every one of his patients with brain problems, as far as cognitive decline, concussion repair, daily thinking. I mean, how many times are you reaching for a word, you just can't think, or you're bogged down or foggy? So fish oil. So add supplements, and I'll send you that list if I email you. Move daily. Start making it a little harder for yourself. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Park further away. At lunch, plan 15 to 20 minutes. Oh, and when we talk about exercise and movement, we're talking about, if you look at any study on exercise and cancer, exercise and diabetes, it's like 20 to 30 minutes of walking 3 to 5 days a week. I mean, it's not marathon training or boot camps. It's simple stuff. So walking is simple. My son said, I don't want to walk the dog. I said, she's walking you. I don't care about the dog is taking you for a walk. You don't understand. We had that conversation today. He's like, where's the walking chart? I go, I have the walking chart. It's your turn to walk the dog. I said, what? We have this argument? And I said, Kyle, everybody knows that if you don't walk a dog, it gets sick. So gratitude exercises. This is the simplest thing you can ever do. It takes a minute. 3 things you're grateful for in the morning or in the evening. Write them down is better. That's better, but that's it. You can't be grateful and depressed at the same time. You can't be grateful and sad at the same time. And you all have things to be grateful for. We all have things to be grateful for. That's simple. It costs nothing. Your blood work changes, actually, when you do this. And the last thing I just added to this, if somebody wants one single, probably the most impactful, especially nutritional thing, is cut down on carbs and sugar. You have to cut down on carbs and sugar. That is the most impactful thing probably on the human body right now because we're so carb addicted and sugar is in everything. In 1800, I think we had people consume 5 pounds of sugar per person per year. Now it's up to about 150 to 165 pounds of sugar per person per year. That's in just roughly 2 years. You can't increase something that much without repercussions, and it's a major issue. That's probably what I'll probably do a talk on sugar pretty soon. I'll skip through these. These are quotes from Seneca and Socrates, just basically saying, listen, we've been talking about simplifying things forever. You know, there's no new stuff. If you go back and read these ancient philosophers, they have the secrets to life, and it's basically don't have too much stuff, love other people, treat them, you know, I mean, there's no big secret. This is a plant. This is a plant that was in my yard probably 10 years ago now, but it obviously isn't doing too well. And back to what I said in the beginning, first thing you would think is, I would say, is what do you think this plant needs?
Water.
It needs what? It needs water. It needs water because I knew that because I didn't water it in a while. So here's the thing. I saw this in the morning on my way out to work. I quickly watered it. I came home that night, and that's what it looked like. So when I talk about wellness, this is very reflective of humans because if we a lot of us are wilting, a lot of people are wilting, and when you give the body what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't, it does this. And it can do it fairly fast, not that fast. And my buddy's a landscaper, he was in a talk of mine, and he goes, hey, you don't do that to that plant a lot, do you? Because it's not going to keep coming back like that. But it's meant to flourish. It's meant to, we're meant to be booming, and we're kind of like a bunch of wilting people. I mean, kids nowadays, if you look at the chronic illness in kids, it's like a wilting field. It's not supposed to be that way. Do I have anything else? Oh, and here's the last thing. It's easy. Jim Rohn said this. He said it's easy to do the things you need to do to be well. He was actually talking about wealth and success. He said to be a millionaire. He said, but it's also easy not to do those things. And that was the difference, he said, in becoming a multimillionaire for him. He said he just did the things that were easy that other people didn't like to do. And it's not that hard. We just make it so big for us. We blow it up, and we do blow it up, don't we? Because we, you know, if we got to go to the gym or something, it's like, wow, I want to go to the gym, but you know what? I'm gonna have to pack my clothes, and I'm gonna have to get the bag, and then I'm gonna have to, you know, walk. I'm gonna have to. The car's cold, and then I got to drive across town. And then I'm gonna be sweaty, and and we go all the stuff. But you know, if we're gonna get ice cream, it's like, well, walk out, get ice cream, and I'm good. You know, it's not a big deal. So we need to rethink how we're doing things. So we made it too complicated. There's no big breakthrough coming. Medicine is definitely not the answer. Not that it's not needed at times, but it's not the answer. We've proven that because we've gotten more medicine than we've ever had, and we're sick as we've ever been. But go back to the basics, the simple stuff, whether it's your nutrition or your exercise or your relationships or your work. I mean, go back to the basics, and those will work better than the complex stuff. Do we have time to do some questions? You guys, you want to do some questions, answers? Any questions?
How much fish oil do you recommend?
1 teaspoon. I'd have to look at the bottle on the actual thing, but a teaspoon of the oil or 4 capsules is what I take.
So you found an oil that doesn't taste gross?
No, yeah, innate choice. It's innate choice. It's molecular distilled. It's the best we could find. What flavor? Lemon. There's a lemon touch to it, but it doesn't taste fishy, and you're not burping it up. And they talked about that this weekend in the seminar I was at. That if you're burping up your fish oil, it's rancid. It's likely rancid. And most people, you know, when you look at fish oil, back to simplistic stuff, you know, they talk about fish oil and they talk about it's concentrated or whatever. Now you've taken fish oil and you messed with it, right? Anything we mess with gets screwed up. So we want fish oil in the purest form. In fact, fish would be ideal, but now we can't even eat fish the way we should because it's kind of toxic from mercury. But yeah, so
What's the better choice for fish oil?
the better what?
What's the good brand for fish oil?
you know, we have it in our office. We have Innate Choice. There are other good brands. I know Carlson makes a good brand, and but you can't just go to Walgreens and buy fish oil. Vitamin D is a little less particular, but things like fish oil, you want good stuff. Yes?
What about cod liver oil?
Cod liver oil is good. The reason I wasn't taking cod liver oil is because it has vitamin A and D in it, and I didn't know how much I was getting. So I didn't want to get too much of those things and too much vitamin D, because I was supplementing vitamin D. I would consider doing cod liver oil. You know, they used to line kids up in school. Some of you probably remember this, I don't know. And they would give it to them before school. There's pictures online. If you Google that, they would give it to them in school before. And now they're giving them like fluoride or something. But Walgreens? Well, the brand is important, because you'll hear cod liver oil, but there's a lot of people making cod liver oil. So you'd want to get like Carlson's cod liver oil, but that I tend to burp up. So, any other questions? Yes.
Are there bad healthy foods? Like, they'll say, okay, you choose a fruit, but an apple, it has more sugar than a banana, and it's going to spike your... So you're like thinking
Right.
you're eating something that's a whole food, but they'll talk about like the sugar in fruit and how that
Right.
works with like, okay, if you eat that, then the rest of the day you may be craving whatever.
So it depends on the goal. You know, if somebody's trying to, say, lose weight, and I might talk to you on the ketogenic diet. Like a ketogenic diet, you would have probably no fruit because you really want to stay in ketosis. But, you know, the fruit has so many other valuable properties, and with blood and vessels and organs and tissues that, you know, when people ask that, and I know you lead a healthy lifestyle, but I've had people ask me that, and I'll say, hey, Bob, how about we start with no donut? You know what I mean? He's worried about fruits or apples or grapes. And I'm like, okay. So in that case, I would say if you're not eating, you know, if you're eating poor diet, that's a great way to start. But just don't go crazy. You know, my kids, a lot of times they'll take a cut up apple with peanut butter for their lunch.
Isn't there something with a combination of foods too?
You
So
know what? But if you
are-
look back, I mean, even the carbohydrates, because that tribe with the healthiest hearts, they have a primarily carbohydrate diet. Now, they're not refined carbohydrates, but that actually got me rethinking, like, you know, yeah, carbs are okay if you're eating healthy carbs and not going crazy. But most people, you talk a lot of vegetarians, not most, but a lot of them are grainitarians. You know, you'll see overweight vegetarians. And it's like, how's that happen? Well, because they're eating a lot of grains. And grains and carbs. So, yeah, I mean, you don't want to eat all... I was putting no fruit in my smoothies in the morning. Now I do, because I actually mix it. My daughter has some, so she won't eat exactly what I'll eat, so I'll throw some fruit in there to sweeten it up. And I know it's the beginning of the day. I'm going to burn it off, or before a workout, you'll burn it off. But, you know, you just don't go crazy with the fruit. But, yeah, fruit. And as far as, yeah, some have a higher glycemic index.
Thing now too, where like a portion of almonds is like 18 almonds. So like you think, oh, 12. Like you go, oh, I'm eating almonds. Like I'm gonna eat
yes,
almonds,
right.
however. And like when you actually like say this is a realistic amount of almonds
Right.
you should be eating, it's surprising, which is fine. And you eat your 12 almonds and you be on your way. But like, I think we have a certain like mentality, or maybe just me personally. Oh, it's healthy, so I can eat.
Well, yeah, you can
whatever.
overeat healthy foods for sure. Plus now, marketing is so good that, you know, when probiotics got big, you know, I saw chocolate chip cookies with probiotics. Like they put probiotics in everything. So, you know, they'll kind of, you know, and on the label it'll say, you know, fortified with this, you know, so there's a lot of manipulative stuff out there. So you got to, I mean, I have vetted out so many things. I spent more money on stuff that ends up going in the trash. I got cookies this morning. Yesterday I opened up these cookies, low carb, low sugar cookies. They were big cookies, so I cut them up, put them in my kids' lunch. They're all like, oh no. And I was like, come on, give it a shot, we'll see. Kyle walks in the door, he goes, hey, by the way, that cookie, no good. Quincy walks in the door and goes, hey, Dad, that cookie, I'm kind of on the fence. I go, really? Because Kyle said it was terrible. She goes, yeah, it wasn't too good. And Emma hasn't come home yet. I can't wait to hear what she said. So, and I had a bite after they left, and I went, they're not going to like it. But we've tried everything, or most things, because I found some really good, like if I talk about the ketogenic, I'll give you all kinds of shortcuts that are phenomenal. You know, but when people say cauliflower rice, oh, it doesn't taste like rice. No, it doesn't taste like rice. Or zucchini pasta. Yeah, it doesn't taste like pasta. You know, you can't, if you go into think it's going to be pasta, try telling an Italian patient to eat zucchini pasta in lieu of pasta, good luck. But you have to have the right mindset and know what it is.
But with the ketosis, can you overeat meat too? Because that's a whole different thing. Like, I've done the ketosis, and I'm like, okay, I'm eating meat and vegetables. And then I read something else that says, okay, well, you should eat plants, and you should eat
a lot of vegetables, right? It's got to be a variety, you know. But most people aren't doing nearly enough, so they got to start somewhere, and they'll. So yeah, you can overeat. In fact, the ketogenic diet, the biggest mistake people make, and I've had conversations with Dr. D'Agostino, Miriam, I forget her last name, that works with Dr. Mercola. I've had conversations with them to figure out the biggest mistake people make is too much protein. They then gets turned into sugar. So there's a way of doing it, but most people don't have to be in ketosis most of the time, unless they have a certain condition. But ketogenic-ish is what I would say. Even with wellness-ish. You know, we're all in or all out. How about wellness-ish? Or, you know what I mean? That's a good start. So, I mean, if someone is making a mistake or really debating on whether fruit, I don't think you can go wrong with that unless your goal is to, say, lose a lot of weight or you have blood sugar issues, because you can't eat too much sugar. Any other questions? When I email, what I'll email is just that quick list. I'll have the supplements on there. It'll have my phone number on there at the office. It'll have my email address on there. Feel free to email if you have any questions. You know, it's hard to go over a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, but with the next, I think, 3 or 4 months, we're going to do this on the first Tuesday. The next one will be biohacks, and I'll probably do one on ketogenic diet, because you're hearing a lot about that, and I can kind of break that down, all the myths and the problems that people are having with it and why it is so good. I mean, if someone's overweight, I could guarantee I can shed 20 to 30 pounds in 6 weeks on their body in a safe way, if they do what we're talking about. But and it preserves muscle mass. So there's reasons that people need to know about it. I mean, we have a lot of patients that were diabetic and now they're not diabetic. So you don't hear about that from, you know, doctors aren't even shooting for that. It's like, it's not a matter of, will I get rid of my diabetes? It's, how do I manage it? How do I manage it? Well, they don't have diabetes anymore. And the side effect is they've lost weight, they have more energy, they're sleeping better, they're thinking clearer, and they're just better.
Well, as part of this, then I'll be done, but part of the ketosis is how long between, like, fasting. So you stop eating at, like, 6, and then you don't eat again for, like, what is it, 18 hours?
You can. I mean, there's different ways of doing it. You can actually eat 3 meals and still be in ketosis, depending on what you eat.
Right,
but,
true.
yeah, intermittent fasting, that'll actually be probably one of the biohacks I talk about, because that's one of the more powerful things that's available to people. And you just got to get over the hump of the whole idea of not eating. We're so ingrained. You know, I remember being at lunch, like, what are we going to eat for dinner? It's like, oh, my gosh, why are we so hung up on food?
Or eating high fat to burn fat, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure, and high fat. And don't be afraid of fats. I mean, fats, we need fats. Our brain needs fats, avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty cuts of grass-fed meat. We need fat, grass-fed butter. Since we reintroduced butter to our diet, like steamed broccoli and green beans are phenomenal, you know, because we ate them for years without. But now we can put butter on it. So feel free to email any questions you have. I'll send that out to whoever's on that list. But if you have any questions, let me know. But try not to get hung up on the complexity of wellness. People get bogged down and then they almost get paralyzed and they do nothing. So start with doing something. And I'm not just talking about wellness. Last month I talked about redefining wellness. Wellness isn't about having a normal blood sugar or healthy body weight or having normal blood pressure. It's about living fully and experiencing life fully and having a lot of energy and having a desire to go and do and see and be. So I'm not worried about that. We have a lot of people that come in and they literally, one guy couldn't get off the couch from his statin cholesterol lowering drugs. His legs, he could not get off the couch. Goes into his doctor and he says, I can't walk. This stuff is killing my legs. And the doctor said, but look at your cholesterol numbers. Now, I would rather be dead in 5 years if there was a cholesterol heart link, which that's questionable. We could talk about that. But I want to live. So I'm not, you don't have to rob Peter and pay Paul. You don't have to have either or. That's the other thing. You don't have to have great legs and bad cholesterol. You can have good cholesterol and healthy legs. But, you know, it doesn't make sense to sit on the couch in pain because you can't move just so your cholesterol numbers. It doesn't make any sense. So, anything else? Well, hey, thanks for coming. And check out, like I said, the spa, like I said, and I'm not plugging them to plug them, but, you know, when I found out that they were 18th in the country, I mean, it's phenomenal. And you'll know, just by walking through, you can get a sense of how nice it is. So, thanks for coming, guys.